Hi, this is Sally's Book Talk. Listen to great books every day as we bring you the best reads from around the world. Today's featured book is From the Soil: The Foundations of Chinese Society. Why do we always say it's easier to get things done with acquaintances?
Why are Chinese people often criticized for lacking public spirit and being indifferent to matters that don't directly concern them?
Why does workplace hierarchy portray seniority and tenure? How are these phenomena connected to the rural foundations of Chinese society? All these questions find answers in From the Soil: The Foundations of Chinese Society. The author, Fei Liutong, was a world-renowned sociologist and anthropologist, a founding figure of Chinese sociology and anthropology, recipient of the Huxley Memorial Medal, anthropology's highest honor, and honorary fellow of the London School of Economics. From the Soil stands as one of Fei's most seminal works. Sociologist Pristy Yefu of Peking University praised it, saying, "From the Soil represents exemplary popular social theory writing. Fei's comprehensive theoretical framework for traditional social order presents profoundly original insights." Fei studied social anthropology at LSE under Bronislaw Malinowski, completing his groundbreaking doctoral thesis, Peasant Life in China. When published in London, 1939, Peasant Life in China became required reading for European anthropology students. In the 1940s, while teaching rural sociology at Southwest Associated University and Yunnan University, Fei developed 14 academic essays. These were serialized in Century Review magazine before being compiled into From the Soil in 1947. In this concise 70,000-word work, Fei analyzes core characteristics of Chinese grassroots society through concepts like differential mode of association and ritual governance, providing both a key to understanding rural China and a mirror reflecting national character. Even today, Fei's sociological perspectives and methodologies remain remarkably relevant. From the Soil remains essential reading for understanding China's socio-economic cultural fabric. Next, we'll explore three key concepts from the Soil to unveil the essence of China's rural foundations. The three key concepts are attachment to land, differential mode of association, and ritual-governed society. Among these, attachment to land helps us understand our national character differences. Differential mode of association explains Chinese social etiquette and interpersonal dynamics. Ritual-governed society reveals the hidden forces maintaining social stability. Let's begin with the first concept, attachment to land. Attachment to land refers to dependence on soil and the consequent static acquaintance-based society. This section explains why earthiness defines Chinese character and why Chinese prefer relying on acquaintances.
People often mock those deemed earthy, unsophisticated villagers with outdated clothes and blank expressions, associating earthiness with backwardness and ignorance.
But Fei Liutong argues this. Earthiness reveals the fundamental feature of grassroots society, people's bond with land. This earthiness essentially shaped our national character, beliefs, and culture. Traditional Chinese society was agrarian. Before 1949, over 90% of population were peasants. Peasants' livelihood came from farming, Fei noted. Those living directly off agriculture are glued to the land. Clothing required growing cotton, Silkworm's food required cultivating crops, all land-dependent activities. People settled near fields, building homes for farming convenience and land protection, generation after generation. Land was life, source, foundation of existence, and spiritual belief. The most numerous deities in China are earth gods. Earth gods typically appear as chubby, white-bearded, old men. Small shrines at village entrances and fields receive constant incense reporting births, deaths, and major life events. The earth god functions like a village patriarch, protecting the community. Beyond mythology, Chinese hold special affection for homeland soil and native soil complex. Symbols like ancient wells, locust trees, and earth shrines represent hometowns, all derived from soil. In literary works and films, overseas Chinese returning home always take a handful of native soil when leaving. When homesick, they take it out to look at. This soil keeps their homeland close in their hearts. We often see farmers in urbanized villages transforming flower beds between buildings into vegetable plots after relocation. This isn't just about saving money. It's continuation of land-dependent lifestyle ingrained in older farmers' habits. Fei Yutong observed Chinese farmers' immobility, half buried in soil through generations, creating static acquaintance societies. These societies form through two bonds: blood relations, kinship, and geographical proximity. Neighbors are either relatives or families living side by side for generations. Thus, everyone becomes familiar, creating the first characteristic: shared cognitive context. Shared cognitive context means communicators understand each other without full background explanations. Example: when A asks B, "How much did you give the Zhangs?" and B replies, "Same as the lease." Outsiders are confused, but they understand perfectly. This illustrates the second characteristic: ritualized social reciprocity. Events like weddings or funerals require neighbors to help organize and give monetary gifts as social obligation. Fei noted, community cohesion relies on this web of mutual indebtedness. One must repay favors with interest. Settling debts completely ends relationships. Thus, people maintain perpetual social credit. The third characteristic, clear insider-outsider distinction, Fei documented villagers called Kibian, guest side, or ethnic, new guests. These terms, for outsiders or newcomers, highlight strict social boundaries. Even after decades, families might still be considered Wai Kun Ren, outside village people. This social labeling maintains group cohesion through exclusion mechanisms. The acquaintance, society's three pillars: shared context, reciprocal obligations, and clear boundaries, shaped traditional Chinese social order. Fei's analysis reveals how land attachment fundamentally structured interpersonal dynamics. Some families living in villages for generations are still called Kibian outsiders. This shows traditional village acquaintance societies were relatively closed with strict insider-outsider distinctions. With social development, people began leaving land for urban work and life. Interpersonal relationships became less tight-knit than before. One might live somewhere for a decade without knowing neighbors. Yet, acquaintance, society, logic still influences many aspects of life. Many complain about big city costs but stay rather than return to hometown comforts, or soon return after going back.
Some explain smaller cities operate more on acquaintance logic with scarce resources, requiring connections for schools, healthcare promotions.
Many family businesses face nepotism issues. While family trust aids, smart toots, scaling exposes problems of mixing personal and business interests. Conflicts arise between corporate and familial benefits. Unqualified relatives given positions, lower workforce efficiency. Acquaintance societies have dual nature, warm yet harsh, like two sides of a coin. This concludes our first key concept, attachment to land. From farming to settlement, patterns to spiritual beliefs, earthiness permeated traditional farmers' existence and mentality. Land-based life was stable, enduring, and minimally mobile. Farmers worked fields daily, generation after generation, forming kinship. Geography-based acquaintance societies. 3 characteristics. 1. Paired cognitive context. 2. Social reciprocity. 3. Strict insider definitions. This third point introduces the book's most crucial concept, differential mode of association. 差序格局, our second key turn. This section explains why Chinese appear strong in personal ethics, but weak in public morality, behaving differently towards acquaintances versus strangers. First, what is differential mode of association? Fei cites early 20th century Suzhou's polluted waterways as example. Residents use public canals as sewers, despite others washing clothes, vegetables there, feeling no obligation to maintain public spaces.
Fei wrote, "When something is considered public, it becomes fair game for exploitation. People claim rights without responsibilities.
In shared courtyards, no one cleans common areas. Whoever does gets no appreciation. Seen as foolish," Fei observed. Chinese excel at managing private affairs, but adopt not my business attitude toward public matters. Sweep only your own doorstep. Recent news. A county known as China's vegetable basket uses excessive fertilizers, pesticides on commercial crops distributed nationwide,
while locals grow separate organic plots for personal consumption.
They disregard others' contaminated food, water, not my family's problem. Fei concluded Chinese selfishness reflects how boundaries between self-others are drawn. Westerners seem more public-spirited, yet value privacy, strongly reflecting different social structures. This difference stems from contrasting social patterns between East and West. Fi Weiyotong termed Western social structure as organizational pattern. This pattern resembles bundling rice straw, stalks grouped into bundles, bundles into sheaves, forming clear hierarchical units. Each straw belongs to specific groupings, maintaining distinct boundaries without confusion. Social units are clearly defined groups with explicit membership boundaries. Membership status, who's in or out, is strictly determined. University clubs exemplify this structure well. Choirs or poetry societies. Membership grants specific rights and obligations, contrasting traditional Chinese patterns. Members have defined privileges, activities, elections, and duties, fundamentally different from Chinese norms. Take family as comparative example between East and West. Western family clearly means spouse and minor children, like distinct straws in a bundle. Clear boundaries between family members and outsiders. Traditional Chinese family is elastic. Boundaries expand, contract situationally. Family could mean just spouse, or include distant relatives, flexible according to needs. One's family circle can expand to include anyone strategically useful. As Proverb says, the whole world becomes family when convenient. In Dream of Red Mansions, Jia household included distant relatives like Granny Lu during prosperity.
But when Jia family declined, these relatives dispersed. When tree falls, monkeys scatter.
This exemplifies the saying, "No visitors to poor man's city home, distant relatives seek rich man in mountains." Contrasting Western group structure. Fei. Name Chinese pattern. Differential mode of association. Fei illustrated it as concentric ripples from self. Relationships weaken with distance like water waves. So what are concrete manifestations of this self-centered differential mode of association? Sociologist Yen Young-Skiang's analysis identifies horizontal and vertical dimensions in Fei's concept. Horizontally, obligations vary, with relational closeness vertically. Power differences reflect social hierarchy. Fei's ripple analogy shows horizontal relationships radiating from self. Closer circles bear heavier obligations. Conversely, distant circles entail lighter responsibilities as relationships weaken. In this pattern, people constantly gauge relational distance to determine appropriate actions. Example: wedding gifts differ significantly between siblings, close friends, and colleagues. When seeking favors, people strategically emphasize connections to move closer to the relational center. Case: Sa-an asks Li Si to help Wang Wu. Li Si questions, "How close is he to you?"
The Wang is just a friend. Zhang claims, "He's my cousin," forcing Li Si to reluctantly comply.
Vertical manifestation involves hierarchical superiority, inferiority distinctions. Traditional Chinese hierarchy emphasized ruler over subject, father over son, noble over commoner. This strict hierarchy derived binding power from traditional ritual governance systems. Vertical differential logic persists in modern Chinese workplaces.
Despite modern equality, ideal strict hierarchy remains in institutions. Positions are non-interchangeable.
Even same-rank colleagues follow seniority order. First come, first honored. In formal settings, seating arrangements directly reflect individuals' hierarchical positions within organizations. The seat facing the entrance and central positions denote highest status. Second in command sits to leader's left, third to right, etc. Distance from center indicates lower status. These hierarchies are either formally stipulated or tacitly understood through social osmosis. What maintains acceptance of this hierarchy? Yen Young-Skiang notes: superiors, greater power, resources as partial explanation. But key is institutional mobility. 10 years cold study brings noble status through imperial exams. Additionally, traditional respect for elders, granted increasing privileges with age-enduring daughter-in-law, becomes mother-in-law. This hierarchical system perpetuates across generations, forming traditional social structures' differential pattern. This concludes our second key concept, differential mode of association. Phi Rio Tong identified this pattern through Chinese distinctions between public-private spheres. Differential mode organizes social relations through self-centered concentric circles of obligation. Horizontally, closer relationships demand heavier obligations, distant ones lighter. Vertically, hierarchical superiority. Inferiority creates power differentials, forming social web. Each individual occupies specific nodes, reacting according to relational positioning.
This explains Faye's observation. Not my business attitude toward public matters.
Polluting public rivers or contaminating others' food becomes permissible when lacking relational obligations. Ultimately, differential mode exempts individuals from obligations towards distant social circles. Traditional Chinese morality lacks universal principles. All values exist relative to differential relationships. From any social circle's perspective, inward is public insiders, requiring full devotion. Outward is private, outsiders meriting no obligation. Thus, in differential patterns, people sacrifice greater good for smaller groups, prioritizing their own circle's interests.
Some institutions misappropriate funds meant for broader groups to benefit their own departments, maximizing internal gains at others' expense.
If differential mode shapes rural society structure, ritual governance forms its normative framework. What constitutes this normative ritual power? How does it function in rural society? This leads us to our third key concept: ritual-governed society. What is a ritual-governed society? When discussing governance models, we typically contrast rule bimen versus rule bi-law. These are often seen as mutually exclusive governance paradigms. But Faye argues traditional China followed neither. It was governed through ritual, leisure. Ritual-governed society maintains order through established social rituals defining human relations. What then is ritual, Li? Ritual comprises socially accepted behavioral norms. Compliance equals righteousness. Like law, ritual provides behavioral standards, but differs in enforcement. Law relies on state coercion. Ritual persists through tradition, tradition being its first characteristic. Tradition embodies accumulated social experience. Pre-existing norms require individuals to learn and practice them, a process called socialization. In rural acquaintance societies, ritual violations like marital impropriety or theft trigger community censure through gossip. This collective shaming maintains social control without formal legal mechanisms.
The person involved must live cautiously, possibly facing clan punishment. Those who can't endure flee far away, never to return.
Clearly, ritual's normative power over social life equals that of law. Crucially, ritual governance works in slow-changing societies where past experience solves current problems. The second characteristic, voluntary compliance. Unlike law enforced by state power, ritual relies on cultivated reverence through education. The famous story of Zhengzi changing mats. On deathbed, Zhengzi realized his mat was for higher-ranking officials. He immediately asked disciples to help change it.
His son, Zheng Yuan, pleaded, "You're too ill for this exertion."
Zhengzi insisted, correcting mistakes matters most. Dying following ritual is sufficient.
Zhang Zi passed away before properly settling on the new mat.
This extreme self-discipline story shows ritual's supreme status in traditional mindset. Third characteristic, governance through non-governance. Self-maintained order through internalized norms, ensuring social stability without external force. Fei Riotong illustrated this with football match analogy. In ideal matches, referees become redundant as players know rules and accept penalties. Rule violations affect both player and team reputation.
But this ideal order rarely holds. Self-interest drives rule breaking.
How then ensure universal ritual knowledge and compliance? Through cultural indoctrination. Indoctrination means teaching until transformed, molding behavior to ritual standards through education.
We often see TV dramas where a young offender kneels in the ancestral hall receiving clan elders' reprimand.
This represents traditional indoctrination, neither imposed by imperial power nor formed through public deliberation. It's not imperial because indoctrination stems from folk cultural forces, not political coercion or exploitation. It requires no consent. Indoctrination is mandatory from birth, not optional. Fei Riotong noted, elders inherently hold indoctrination power over youth. The saying, choose a T, dictates respect and obedience towards elders. This manifests clearly in university senior-junior relationships. Seniors guide juniors, academically and socially, exercising indoctrination power through experience. Workplace seniors similarly hold natural meriting authority over newcomers. Another rural indoctrination example, dispute mediation through ritual standards. Respected elders mediate conflicts by reprimanding both parties' breach of ritual norms before securing mutual compromise. Mediation educates participants and observers, internalizing ritual norms until external supervision becomes unnecessary. These ritual governance mechanisms persist in modern society. Even in Lega-focused societies, ritual governance supplements legal systems to promote harmony. We see enthusiastic elders mediating neighborhood disputes alongside specialized community mediation organizations. They resolve conflicts through empathy and reason, maintaining grassroots harmony and stability. This concludes our interpretation of Fei Riotong's From the Soil. Let's summarize key points. 3 key concepts: attachment to land, individual level, differential mode, and ritual governance, structural level. Differential mode is social structure's form. Ritual governance, its underlying rules. In attachment to land, soil as farmers, lifeline and faith acquaintance. Society's 3 characteristics: shared context, social reciprocity, strict boundaries. Differential mode section. Phase analysis of public-private distinctions defining Chinese social structure. This concept explaining Chinese interpersonal relations remains Fei's greatest sociological contribution. Horizontal relational proximity and vertical hierarchical superiority constitute differential mode. Ritual governance. Social order maintained through ritual norms with 3 characteristics: tradition, reliance, voluntary compliance, self-regulation. Indoctrination power embeds ritual concepts into consciousness, sustaining social stability. May this interpretation open a window into traditional rural society. Published 70 years ago, From the Soil, remains profoundly relevant today. Faye's deep understanding of grassroots society and seminal concepts continue illuminating Chinese social logic and academic research. This concludes our interpretation of From the Soil. Keynotes below the audio. See you tomorrow.